Hello again. We are on the road once again at Country Roads Take Me Home. We're actually heading from Campbelltown to Mount Joy, and I wasn't originally planning on doing this because I don't really like to have like two of the same type of video in a row, but I wanted to film over at Cornwall at the United Methodist Church there that I had some pictures for Instagram, and it just didn't work out. I have this small job in Mount Joy that I gotta do, landscaping project, and it's a lot further from Campbelltown to where I get the mulch bags. Is easier for me to handle, and unfortunately it's just how it worked out. It's easier to film along the way and do a Country Roads Take Me Home, and this is a really pretty drive. It's a pretty pond over there. And I'd like to film it from this direction because as you go into Mount Joy, there's some of those building paintings where they have advertisements for, I think in this case it's popcorn, but you only can see it from that going this way. So there's a couple things that work better going this way angle-wise, unless if you go the other way, you just don't get the shot that you'd like. Anyways, so this is the trip from Campbelltown to Mount Joy. I'm gonna let you enjoy some of the traveling. I might add music to this one because I'm still feeling a little weird with the cough, and I wind up getting this like weird indigestion thing, which isn't fun. So anywho, so it's a really pretty drive. I thought about doing this one on 117. You go through a couple different cool little towns that we'll wind out visiting. Some we have visited already. We'll go through Colebrook, which is where we did one of the haunted history tales, the Hounds of Colebrook. It was the guy that was the manager of the Colebrook furnace, iron furnace, that made his dogs because they made him mad. He had lost a bet that he could get a fox or something along that line, and he took his hounds and forced them into the iron furnace. And then ever after that, he was haunted by these dogs. But it's a good video. Go check out that series, Haunted History. A lot of fun. I actually got that story too. I got that from Wandering Woodsman, Cliff. It's definitely an ever winding road. Some of the trees are flowering here. I was down in Cornwall today. I drove through, and I got some pictures of the different towns. I do have them all situated because when I went into that, I had no idea which were which, and I actually figured it out from I have the images across America of Cornwall, and I found all the different little towns. I actually visited Rexmont as well. The only village I didn't take pictures of was Anthracite, which is now Goosetown. I didn't take pictures of that. I found the actual, I guess they're both known as the Brick Row, but one, the houses are like slightly separated, and then the one that they have in the book that I was thinking about, that they're all connected, that's actually almost in Rexmont. Cool little town actually, Rexmont. I actually went maybe a mile or two past Rexmont, just through some of the, goes into South Lebanon Township, and it's a really pretty area actually. Roads are sort of horrible, I'll say that, but other than that, it's a really pretty country. So, but yeah, I actually found that first town that we went through, the small village with the stone houses, that was Bird Coleman, that town. I found North Cornwall is actually not even in an area that we were in. It's north, thus named North Cornwall, but there's another town there, I think Kintrickville, was actually started in 1949. Quite a cool little town. Some cool houses in there. Definitely got that 50s feel of the houses from back then. And it was named after a guy that eventually became the mayor of Cornwall. But he started that town up for some of the miners that were left, and a bunch of cool history there. So I think I'm gonna try to pull off here at some point, because I have this guy that is just riding me, going the speed limit and everything. It's a cool house there. They have that, it's hard to see from this angle, but a lot of these German houses, they would have that white block that gives sort of, they have a German statement on it, or saying in German some kind of blessing on the house, and then they'll have the date that it was built. I always thought it was like the red sandstone houses are always really, really nice. I'm going to get off the road here because this guy is determined to run me down. I just don't know why people have to do that, but they like doing that. So, oh wow, that was a bumpy thing there. But another one is really cool. Sheesh, another person. Limestone is like, as soon as you pull off, there's another person comes up right behind you because they're going way over the speed limit. This is the village of Colebrook. They actually have a really historic house here on the right. As you go past the road, that goes over the lawn in Elizabethtown. That's actually the Colebrook Ironmaster's house. So we're coming up on a work zone. I don't want them to feel like I'm filming them, so I'm going to pause here. Alright, so we're back. 117 actually goes south, goes left there, and we're coming up here. If you remember, I did a video on what's called Dinosaur Rock. That's actually coming up here on the right. If you haven't watched that video yet, it's a really cool like geologic feature where the rocks are sort of piled up on top of each other, and it looks sort of like it'd be, I guess, like a T-Rex head that's just sort of sitting out there. The only bad thing about it is they like to go out and do a lot of graffiti and destroy anything that's special, just because that's how some people are. They're useless to society, but that's what they do because they feel like they're adding their touch or something like that. But that'll actually be coming up here right on the right here. Where that stone is, there's a trail that goes back, and that takes you back to Dinosaur Rock. Pretty neat feature. Actually, you can see it from the road too. And I believe we're going over the Pennsylvania Turnpike right there. It's not one of my favorite roads at all. A lot of nut jobs that go on that road, but we used to take that out to Johnstown. Stuff that was like southern Pennsylvania, Johnstown, Bedford, Boswell, some of those towns that we did the Family Dollars. We took it, and then as it got more and more expensive, we just got to the point where we'll just take 322 and go down through Altoona. But another cool stone house there. A lot of cool features along here. A lot of cool farmhouses, probably from late 1700s, early 1800s. A lot of unique stone type layout. Like I said, I always was a fan of that sort of reddish sandstone. And then you have that brownstone, which was really popular between like 1900, 1920, and then that sort of went away. The red stone, the sandstone is red stone. It did get used for houses, but it was more used probably for like decoration, and they sort of used it to, make certain, like the edges of the house, along the sides of the house, they would use it sort of to make it stand out a little bit. But like you saw in Cornwall yesterday, they did use it to make entire houses. And the main reason that they sort of used it more in relief along the edges is because sandstone's a pretty soft stone, and I mean, for that matter, limestone is to a degree as well, but sandstone is a little more porous, So normally they didn't build like the entire houses, but if it was what was around and it was cheap, that's what they did. And so it was common. They had those different houses made up. I'll wind out doing another video in Cornwall and talk a little bit about the timeline for when those different villages were actually built, because a lot of them, the majority of them were between 1850, the villages that are still standing, between 1850 and like 1880. Toy Town, I think, was around 1926. But yeah, it was pretty neat to learn the different history of these areas, and then it was cool sort of going with you guys, sort of, you know, exploring and discovering these places the same as you. I'd never been in that miners' village, and it was so cool coming over that hill and just seeing this really neat stone village. And then like one street over is called Granite Street, and that was like 4 or 5 houses in a row that were brick, and I guess each house was split into 2, so they were supposed to house 2 families. I believe what we're in here is Mastersonville. They actually have a cool furniture, like I don't know if it's Amish or Mennonite furniture store coming up here on the right, because you can see it there. It says Mastersonville Furniture, handcrafted furniture. Stuff's good stuff, but it is expensive. I'm pulling off again, letting this guy by, because I really just don't feel like having somebody a couple feet off my bumper. I'm a big fan of road etiquette in general. I just don't enjoy when somebody's right on my backside. They can at least buy me flowers or breakfast or something. I feel better about myself. There's a really cool church too as we come into Mount Joy. It's right past that building that has, I guess it's a popcorn factory or something like that business, and or at least was at one time. They have it's I believe it's a Lutheran church, but it's a stone church. It's probably late 1800s, early 1900s. So yeah, it's a 100-some-year-old church, but it's not as old as some of them that we've gone to. But it has a really, really neat look. So I'd like to do more research on that church, and then do a video on that at some point as well. Mount Joy is a really pretty town. It just I don't know. I always enjoy going through there. You know, just south of that, I'm trying to think what the name of that town is, but that's another. It's right along the Susquehanna, and that's a really pretty little town too. When you get into this area, you start getting into Lancaster County. There's a lot of really, really nice towns in this area. Come up to a stop sign here. Stop for gas here when I get into Mount Joy, because I'm getting low. Should have stopped on the way from Cornwall to Campbelltown, so I had to stop by where I keep my tools and stuff like that, and I just completely forgot to stop. I'm plenty good, but hoping there's a day when the fuel and all that starts to go back down in price, because it's pretty brutal right now. Brutal for everybody. I think we're going to come up to as well. We'll come up to a small town called Milton Grove. That's a pretty neat little mean, it's a very, very small villages type of town. This is a scary turn when you're coming up through here on when it's wet. I've had a couple times where I did a little bit of a skid and got a little nervous. Pretty little creek there. Just loving spring. First thing is spring like this, where it just everything gets so green. It's just so pretty. I always thought this was sort of a cool farm. I think this is Amish. I think there's buggies here and stuff like that, but just on both sides of the road. How the farms used to be. And it's very well kept. Very spiffy, they would say. Change hands, give my right arm a break. Somebody's got an outhouse up there. I always thought this was really pretty. There. Has like a little log structure right next to the pond. I'd like to take a picture of it at some point, but it's at a bad location and can't really stop. I don't like to walk longer than I have to, so. Got some moo-moos and some sheep over there in the field. Maybe they're goats, actually, I think. Can't help but wonder, like, in these places out in the country, like, who all lived here in its history. You know, these places, like there's an old spring house. So I answered one question. Kate had asked on Instagram at the pictures at that church, there was a small stone structure, and I still think it probably was like a spring house or maybe like it'd be a small summer kitchen. Because of how old it is, it wasn't uncommon for buildings back then to have like a sort of summer house, summer kitchen. So it's one of those two things, but today it serves actually as a garage. So it's probably more likely to say it's like a summer house, a summer kitchen, because it seemed like, I thought it was a little smaller than that, but to me it was a little bigger, that it could have fit that whole thing with being a, I can never tell if that's stop signs for this. I'm assuming it is, so I'm stopping. Makes sense. But it's big enough that I would think it's more likely than a spring house. Spring houses are normally pretty small, but it looked like it was a spring house from that side, but I do believe it was probably more like a summer kitchen type of thing. So I hope that answers your question, Kate, from on Instagram. And I did take the buckets out this morning because on the Cornwall trip, they were banging all over the place. I went and got myself some firewood because last night was a little cooler. It was actually this morning, they had a frost warning for there in central Pennsylvania, and there was a frost on my van. But actually the whole, like, I normally like to go out to get these landscape jobs. I like to get started maybe by 10 a.m. but I went a little later because of how cool it still was, and I just don't enjoy working in the cool weather, and everything was wet from condensation and all that, and I was like, nope, we're gonna wait a little bit. Now I'm sort of afraid. I think I waited too long. It's another really pretty, let me get this over here. You can see the stone house there. And that was Milton Grove, I believe, back there. It's a neat little country town. Windy, 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 this road is really windy. There's a pretty little pond down there. Yeah, quite the setup there. Pretty neat, actually. Their own little covered bridge. And now we are coming up to Mount Joy. It's definitely quite the neat town. A couple really cool restaurants. Not sure how many historic structures there are, but like I said, it's a pretty neat, quaint town. And as we get to Main Street, we will wind out shutting off. I get this bug like in my face right now. Sure I'm not going in front of somebody, but there's a forsythia bush just sort of sitting there. But I want you to see this cool, because a lot of times you'll see along these, you know, sort of back roads, routes and stuff like that, you'll have these you know, Chief Punkawonka chewing tobacco, yummy, male pouch tobacco, whatever it is, but they'll have that sort of on the side of a barn. This is cool. It's like the artwork, like I said, it has for I think it's popcorn, but it's just really neat as you come into town here from the north. And I wanted you to see that and maybe see this church as well, as much as I can possibly show you. This is Mount Joy. Coming up here on the left. Hopefully you can see that to a degree. It has Rice Popcorn Company, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. Pretty neat. And then there's the church. That's the back side. Is probably like the newer part of the church. And then you have here on the left, the front part is this nice stone structure. Cool steeple bell tower. But yeah, Trinity Lutheran Church. So with that, I'm going to say thanks once again for coming along. It's a reasonably shorter trip, but it's a cool little back roads, Route 117 through Colebrook and into a couple other little towns along the way, like Milton Grove, and all the way here to Mount Joy. So thanks once again, everybody, and we will see you all about town.